In 2001, Peter Falconio stepped out of his orange combi van on the Stuart Highway in outback Australia, and then disappeared, leaving the engine still running, his girlfriend bound in the dark, and 26,000 square kilometers of searched desert turning up nothing. His blood was on the road. His body was not. And that is the problem. Peter Falconio was 28 years old. A builder from Huddersfield, England, quiet, methodical, the kind of person who plans his routes and checks his tires. He and his girlfriend, Joanne Lees, had been traveling Australia for months on a working holiday, the way young British couples do. By July 2001, they were comfortable, road-worn and relaxed. On the night of July 14th, they were driving north along the Stuart Highway toward Alice Springs. It was 10:15 p.m. The road was empty. The sky above the central Australian desert was completely dark. They had been driving for hours. There was nothing around them for miles in every direction. A man in a truck pulled them over. He told Peter the exhaust on the van was sparking, something was wrong. Peter got out to take a look. The man followed. Joanne stayed in the passenger seat. She heard what she described as a muffled bang, then nothing. The man came back to the van alone. He pressed a gun to Joanne's ribs and told her not to move. He tied her hands behind her back with a cable tie and forced a makeshift hood over her head. She was dragged toward his truck. Then she ran. She slipped her hands free, jumped into the darkness alongside the road, and threw herself flat into the scrub. She lay there for 5 hours. She could hear him searching. He had a dog. It passed within meters of where she was hiding. And then it went quiet. Police arrived at 12:30 a.m. after Joanne flagged down a passing truck. The combi was still there. Engine still running. Peter's belongings inside, his passport, his wallet, his jacket. His blood was on the road at the exact spot where he had stood. The quantity was consistent with a gunshot wound. Search teams mobilized in the days that followed. Tracker dogs, aerial sweeps. Ground teams covering the surrounding terrain in expanding grids. They went wider, then wider still. Over the following months, police returned to the area around Barrow Creek repeatedly. In total, more than 26,000 square kilometers of central Australian desert was covered. They looked for a body. They looked for disturbed earth. They looked for anything that would tell them where Peter Falconio went after his blood hit that road. The desert gave back nothing. The man was identified. His name was Bradley John Murdoch, a truck driver and drug runner who used the Stuart Highway regularly. Joanne Lees picked him out of a lineup. His DNA was found on the cable ties used to bind her wrists and on the hood placed over her head. In 2005, Murdoch was convicted of the murder of Peter Falconio and the assault and deprivation of liberty of Joanne Lees. He received a life sentence. The court accepted that Peter had been shot beside that road, placed in Murdoch's truck and disposed of somewhere in the outback. A convicted killer, a verdict, a sentence. The case on paper was closed. Remember the blood on the road? There was not a lot of it. The quantity found was consistent with a gunshot wound, but not definitively from one. A man shot at close range typically loses more. What was there covered an area smaller than a dinner plate. Murdoch, throughout the trial and after, maintained he did not kill Peter Falconio. He admitted being on the highway that night. He admitted the DNA was his. But he said the encounter happened differently and that Peter was alive when he left the scene. No one has ever explained how his DNA reached those cable ties if he was not the attacker. But no one has ever produced a body either. Without a body, the exact sequence of events, what happened to Peter in the minutes after that sound Joanne described as a muffled bang, remains reconstructed, not confirmed. Here is the detail no theory has ever resolved. The area around Barrow Creek is remote, but it is not empty. Murdoch's truck could not have traveled far in the time available without passing another vehicle or triggering a roadhouse camera. Multiple searches using dogs trained specifically to detect human remains returned nothing. Ground-penetrating radar surveys found nothing. If a body was buried in that desert, it should have been located by now. Either it was not buried there, or it was moved. And if it was moved, someone helped. That person has never come forward. Bradley John Murdoch remains in prison in the Northern Territory. Peter Falconio has never been found. His case is still officially listed as an unsolved disappearance. No remains, no confirmed location, no resolution. 23 years later, someone somewhere in Australia knows where Peter Falconio is. The question is why they are still silent.